All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. If you've been tuning in this month, we are celebrating conservation. We are talking to scientists, explorers, and conservationists all over the world who have dedicated their lives to protecting ecosystems and the species that are found within them. So we're only at about the halfway point. We still have a long month to go with a ton of amazing events all over the world. So head over to exploringbytheseat.com. And you can find all the events that are coming up, sign up for camera spots, jump in to tune in live via YouTube. We're looking forward to seeing everybody as the month goes on. All right, so we're heading out on a virtual field trip today. One of our favorite places to visit, Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario. And today we're going to check out a sand tiger shark feeding at Dangerous Lagoon. So we have Danielle joining us live from the aquarium. I'm going to bring her in first. Danielle, how are you doing today? Oh, we don't have volume on Danielle. Can you hear me, Danielle? All right, let's take a pause on Danielle's feed just for a second. I'm going to bring Katie in. Katie, can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
We got you, Katie. Yeah, Danielle's not coming in yet, but we'll start with your feed because you are down below. You are going to be our eyes in the aquarium today for the shark feeding event.
Yep, and I can show you Danielle's up there in the red. So she's up at the surface. So she's just waiting for the aquarist to arrive because it's lunchtime for these guys, our sand tiger sharks.
All right, excellent. Let me pop back up to Danielle. She can definitely hear us. Let's see if we can hear her now. Hey, Danielle, how's it going? So Danielle, maybe I don't know if you're plugged in, maybe the cord came loose, or you might have to exit and pop back in, but for some reason, we've lost your sound action. All right, we'll give her a minute. Danielle, if you can hear me, try to exit and come back in and see if that clears it up. I'm not sure what's going on, but we heard you just a minute ago, but something changed in that minute since we started. All right, so she just exited. Let's head back to Katie. Katie, let's just enjoy the view for a moment. And why don't you tell us a little bit about Dangerous Lagoon?
Sure. So this is the largest exhibit at the aquarium. It's about 2.8 million liters of water. So it's the home of all of our largest animals. So our sand tiger sharks, which are these guys right here. And an easy way to remember that these are the sand tiger sharks is they have all of those big teeth. So my colleague Caitlin, who does these explorers fairly regularly, she refers to them as our Hollywood sharks. They're really scary looking, but in fact, they're quite timid. So they make great sharks to have in an aquarium setting because they have that great shark look, but without the danger factor. Also in this exhibit, we have some smaller sharks, which are the sandbar sharks and the nurse sharks. So see if I can find a couple of those as well. We've got two green sawfish. So here is the male green sawfish right here. And he's actually getting his lunch right now. We'll see if he'll eat for us.
Oh, good timing.
Yeah. So you would have seen that pole come in. So the aquarists are going to be hanging out up here on the ledge. And there's quite a few of them here. And they'll be putting pieces of fish on the end of these long poles. And then the animals know which station they need to go to get fed. So there's different stations for different animals. So for example, this Superman symbol here is not for the sand tiger sharks, it's for the nurse sharks. So we'll probably see them come up to this target and they know that that's their feeding station. And meanwhile, while that's happening, we also have the fish being fed out on the exhibit so they stay out of the way of the sharks. So we may get lucky and get to see some of the, it's like a big jet that comes out that shoots food up into the water from the bottom of the exhibit. And then we'll have a few aquarists also stationed elsewhere that Danielle will be able to show us that are doing what we call a broadcast feed. So just throwing food into the exhibit And that's what's happening over here where all of these fish are. So they stay out of the way of the sharks so they don't get eaten by accident. And the sharks will all be eating along the side, on this side.
All right, very cool. Well, lots happening in Dangerous Lagoon. Let's check in with Danielle up top. Hey, Danielle.
Hi, I got different headphones. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Oh, awesome. I'm so excited. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties.
Hey, it's
So
live technology. What can you do?
So I'm at the top of Dangerous Lagoon, and I'm going to show you what I see, because this is the view that no one gets to see. So this is the top of our largest exhibit here at the aquarium, and it holds 2.8 million liters of water, and that's amazing. This is Dave. Let's get Dave to wave us hi. Hi, Dave. He's one of our aquarists. He actually looks after this large habitat, so he's very important here. And he is feeding our sand tiger sharks. So he's got this pole, and that is a great shark. Decided to get food right away. He's also recording what each shark eats. So we have somebody with a clipboard that is able to record how much of each food that every animal is eating. So I can show you the food bucket. It's right here. Today we are eating a lot of mackerel, and if you look a little bit further down, there's some squid, which will look really cool from the bottom view later on. So in this habitat here, we mostly have sand tiger sharks. There are 12 of them, but we also have 2 other species. So there are nurse sharks, there's 3 of those. There's also sandbar sharks, and we have 2 of those. And that makes up the majority of our shark habitat here. They do happen to live with fish as well. They're not going to eat the fish that they live with because we are feeding them so well. They actually get fed here 3 times a week. So today is Thursday. They were fed on Tuesday and also Sunday. And we feed them 3 times a week. And you might think that's not very frequent, but it's actually way more frequent than they would eat in the wild. Large sharks usually eat only 1 large meal a month. And because we are feeding them 3 times a week, they're not going to eat the fish that they live with. And we'd rather they wouldn't, because fish are expensive. We don't want to spend lots of extra money to get more fish to fill the habitats. We are able to make sure that our sharks are eating well by sticking vitamins in their food as well, which is great for fish. So the fish we're feeding our sharks, we can shove vitamins inside, and it makes it a lot easier to make sure our sharks are getting a good, healthy diet. Now, you might be afraid of sharks. I know a lot of people are. Sharks actually have teeth that makes them look scary, and they are really excellent predators, but they're using their teeth just to eat their food. So these animals, they have skinny teeth, and you can actually tell what a shark is eating based on the shape of their teeth. And these animals, they have long, skinny teeth, and that's used for taking the meat off fish bones so that they can just eat that part. And you might notice as well that what Dave is feeding them is fish that doesn't have a head or a tail. And that's because we want to make sure it's an easy time for our filters to clean our habitats, and we don't want it to look too messy downstairs. Our aquarists prepare the fish by chopping off the heads and the tails. So our animals, or the sharks won't eat them anyway, so it's easier for us if we cut it off. And then we can tell exactly how much food each shark eats, because we're actually weighing them as well before we feed them to the sharks to make sure they're getting a good diet. Sand tiger sharks are the largest sharks we have on site. Our biggest one is over 380 pounds, so it's a really, really hefty shark, which is awesome. We're able to have such large animals here to show you in a safe environment so you can learn more about the animals. Sharks are really cool animals. They are an animal that is an excellent hunter. So they have special scales on the outside of the body that are called dermal denticles, and they are kind of like having teeth on the outside of your body. So they're made with dentin, which is the layer under enamel in our teeth. And they use that material to swim so smoothly through the water that they can easily sneak up on prey. Not only do they have that, but they're also able to sense their prey from different distances. So they don't use their eyesight as much for finding their food as they use their sense of smell, and their sense of taste, and their sense of electroreception. So they can smell an injured animal from far away, but not too far, like a few meters. And then they can also sense, like, really pretty close to their bodies. They can actually sense electroreception, so the electrical impulses of fish below the surface of the water. So they can usually sense things like clams and shrimp and injured fish. because their heartbeats won't be as constant, and then they'll think that's an easier item to catch. So you can see here, Dave is getting ready to feed the big squid to our sharks, and he's just taking an eye out for our sharks that'll be in the water that will feed the squid too. The sand tiger sharks naturally will eat fish, squid. They'll probably go after some other soft-bodied animals. They don't really have crushing jaws, so they can't really eat shellfish as easily. But they're not going to try to eat a mammal because that's not what they're adapted to eat, and it's not what they enjoy eating either. So our sand tiger sharks here, we can give them a nice good diet of fish and squid. Sharks are a really old species. They're about 450 million years old, and they've been on Earth for such a long time that they actually, a lot of them haven't changed that much over the millions of years. And that's because this body plan actually works well for them. Sadly, their population is actually decreasing over time because of our, let's say, our fear of sharks. A lot of people hunt sharks because they're afraid of them, or they don't think they're important. And then people use a lot of fishing methods just to get other fish out of the ocean, and that is detrimental to the shark populations because they get caught up in their fishing nets, or they are unable to survive because the people will hunt them out due to fear. And there are some cultures that do eat shark, and it's not really the best. About 80 to 90% of sharks species that exist today are actually decreasing in size. So they are listed as extinct, like almost extinct in the wild, so like critically endangered or vulnerable, and the sand tiger shark is actually listed as vulnerable. A lot of the hammerhead species are listed as critically endangered, so that means that they're almost extinct in the wild, and that's really scary. And there are easy ways to help. So the biggest thing that you can do is you can use your superpower. That is your voice. So you can use your voice to say, hey, sharks are not actually as scary as you think they are. We should learn more about them to protect them in the wild. Or you can start eating a different diet. So I'm not going to tell you to stop eating fish. Just think about where your food comes from and how it was fished. So if you go to the website OceanWise or Sea Choice, you can see what fish you should eat in order to make sure that you're not eating eating too much of a certain fish, so that they are able to support their population in the wild, so we're not harming them in the wild. And we're also making sure there's enough food to go around for all the sharks to eat in their natural habitat. So if you were ever wondering, the divers actually do go into the shark habitats to clean their habitat, not to feed. We are cleaning the algae that grows on the fake coral that's in here. And sometimes, because you can see in another area, guests can be pretty close, so the divers have to go get things that a guest might drop in the water, like sunglasses, because we don't want our animals to eat that. And if all of the divers here look really forward to being able to dive in this habitat, because everyone who works with sharks absolutely loves them and wants to see them right up close and thinks that this is the coolest habitat here to go diving in. And if you would like to learn how to dive, you can actually start learning at close to the age 10, and you can get fully certified by the age 16. So if that's what you'd like to do, it's an expensive sport, but it is well worth the money, just so that you can see these animals up close in their natural habitats as well. And that is all I had to say. I don't know if you want to pass it over to questions, Joe. Hello, Joe? I can continue on. Sharks, they have a cartilaginous skeleton on the outside, on their body. So instead of having bones, they are able to be a little bit lighter in the water. Cartilage is lighter than bone. And then cartilage also does not fossilize, so you will never see a shark fossil in an aquarium. All you ever find are their teeth, and that's because their teeth are made with dentin, so it's that hard bony material that we have in our teeth. And hard bony material can fossilize over time, and shark teeth that are fossils are always black. So if you go to an aquarium, or if you see one in a store and it's a black tooth, that's probably a fossil. And if it's a white tooth, it is probably just a more fresh tooth. They do actually lose their teeth quite often. Sharks will lose about one tooth a week, depending on how much they're eating. And we usually end up finding the sand tiger shark's teeth in this habitat all the time because they're going to lose them anyway, naturally. A shark will get around 50,000 teeth in their lifetime, and they have an unending supply. Humans have actually two sets of teeth, and that's because we have that protective enamel layer on the outside of our teeth to make them last a long time. But sharks don't have that protective layer, so it's a different strategy of survival. They'll be losing their teeth over time so that they work for many, many meals, which is
all right. Danielle, I'm going to jump in here. I was watching the sharks and forgot to turn my mic on, so I was talking to nobody a minute ago.
Oh, no worries. It happens to me.
Thank you for that great description of what's going on and the shark species. And we've done this 2-camera view a couple times, but it never gets old being able to see what's going on above and below. It's pretty awesome. All right, well, let's meet some classrooms because I have no doubt that they're going to have some questions here. So I am going to switch views a little bit here. There we go. And we are going to head over, let's go to Mrs. Gary's class first. Some second graders hanging out in Woodbury, Minnesota. Let me bring them into the call here. There they are. Hey, Minnesota, how are you?
Good. Pretty good, guys.
Good. How much babies do they have?
I think that question was, how many babies do they have?
Yeah.
Yep.
So sand tiger sharks, they usually have one at a time. And that's because they go through this strategy of reproduction called adelphophagy. And that's a fancy word for they will have technically more than one young inside of their body, but the strongest, biggest of all of their young will eat all the rest. And then they will only birth out one. And that's a different strategy than like people, because people only have one child and then the one survives. And then other animals, like a seahorse, will have thousands of children and only one survives. But a shark is kind of guaranteeing that they will have a 100% success rate that their child will make it to adulthood. Because if the strongest, biggest one has the most resources right when it's birthed out, then that's a good chance that that animal will make it to its full adult stage. And that is amazing for a shark to have a 100% success rate most of the time. Unfortunately, our sand tiger sharks have not had any babies yet. We have both males and females, but we have not had them successfully reproduce yet, but we have had mating behavior happen. So we would love to have a baby sand tiger shark here in the future.
All right. Miss Wilbeck's group is tuning in. They're grade 5s, and Madden wants to know, are the sharks competitive? Do they ever, get into disagreements or fights with each other?
So are the sharks competitive? I would say no, for the most part. As you can see, they are not fighting for food. We have stingrays that are way more competitive about getting their food resources than the sharks are. And they will just take their turn coming around to this spot of the habitat to get their food. However, if you do come to visit any aquarium and you see bite marks on a shark, that's normal. That's actually part of their mating behavior. They will bite each other. And that their skin is strong and able to deal with that. Remember I said that the outsides of their body have what we call skin teeth on the outside, and that allows them to deal with those bite wounds as well. And it's completely natural, and I'd say that the only way that they would be aggressive towards each other is just if they are trying to fight for a mate. That's all. Oh, and Katie's showing you a good look at the class first. So that is a male shark that you're looking at there.
All right. Awesome, Katie. Very cool. Let's jump to another classroom here. Let's go to a Canadian classroom. We are going to go to Castleton, Ontario. We've got Mrs. Clark's group hanging out with us. Let me bring them in live. How are we doing, Ontario?
Are we unmuted? Yeah.
You are. Yeah, we got you.
Claire, do you want to ask? Okay, sit down. Claire, do you want to ask your question?
Come
Maybe.
on up, Claire.
What is the most instinct shark in the world, and why?
I think that was, what is the most endangered shark in the world? All right.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say because a lot of them have decreased in population quite a bit in the past 20 years. So I'd say it's probably The hammerheads, like the great hammerhead, scallops, those ones are not doing as well. And that's because they look extremely scary, but they're not. And they get mistreated because a lot of people think that they're very scary, and the movies don't paint them in a good light either. And then the great white shark isn't doing so well either for the same reason. So there are a lot of places that hunt animals because they think they're scary, and that's really not fair for those animals. And then others hunt them because like for sport fishing, and then some people will hunt them for food, and all of that isn't the best. And then the one thing that those two sharks have in common, like the great white and the great hammerhead, is that they both swim in order to breathe, which the sand tiger sharks don't actually need to keep swimming to breathe. But both of those sharks do. And if they get caught in fishing nets, even if like for a short period of time, they won't be able to survive as easily because they've stopped swimming, and the breathing that they do, swimming is actually essential for them to breathe properly.
All right, we've got another YouTube class here. Miss Belland's grade 3s in Bradford, Ontario. They want to know, how big are these sand tiger sharks going to get?
These sand tiger sharks are actually full-grown adults. So theoretically, they could grow a little bit more over their lifetime. But what you're seeing is pretty much their full-grown size. And I'd estimate that this animal is about 2 meters long. So that would be 6 to 7 feet long as well. And as I said before, they weigh, the biggest one weighs 380 pounds. And they can get bigger than both of that, just like how I am as big as I'm ever going to get, but there are humans out there bigger than me.
Okay, let's bring in another class here. We're going to go to Chicago this time, in Illinois. Miss Sagru is joining us with her crew. How you doing? Oh, can you unmute for me?
Yeah,
there we go.
We're good. Thanks for having us today. So one of my students was wondering, how do you get the sharks into your aquarium?
Ooh, that's a great question. So most of our sharks actually came here before we opened, so it's a lot easier to move our sharks into the building. But how we do that is we take a big truck that has a vessel in it that is able to house a shark. So it has like a well in it, so it can hold water. And then we take that truck, which actually is owned by our company, and we can travel it over most of North America. And our sharks actually come from the States. They come from around Florida area. And then we transport them just by truck over the border. They go through a quarantining process before they get here so that they don't have any diseases that we don't want our animals to have. And then when they get here, we take a crane, and then we use the crane to put them in their habitat. And as you can see, their habitat is an area where mostly guests can see, but there's an area in the back, which is where I started, and that's where we're training the animals in, and then they come into this space. They are claustrophobic, so they don't like staying in that smaller space in the back, so they'll quickly move into this space. We are catching them using long lining, so that means we take a big fishing net, put meat on the ends of some hooks, and then we try to catch some animals. And then because we are an accredited facility, we're only allowed to bring in certain numbers of animals of certain genders and certain sizes. So they have to fit the certain guidelines for us to have them in an aquarium facility.
Okay, we had a nice little sea turtle swim by there. Nice view. Very cool. Let's see, where should we go now? Let's go. Mr. Boggs' group, grade 6s, are hanging out with us in Kitchener, Ontario. Let's see if we can get them in here. How are we doing, Kitchener?
Good.
All right, we're ready for you.
How can you tell a shark's age?
How can you tell a shark's age? Well, it's really difficult. So what a lot of people do is they use their size to guess their age, which is not really the best idea, because I'm sure that you guys know that if a grown-up who you didn't know came up to you and they said, oh, you look like you're 10 and you're not 10, then they wouldn't really know, because they're just basing it really on height and the way that you look. However, for a shark, how we can absolutely tell is if they were born in an aquarium. And then the other way that you can tell really well is by looking at their vertebrae after they pass away. So you can look at the growth rings on the vertebrae of a shark, so on their spine bones, which is not actually bone, it's cartilage, but you can use that to see how old they are. It is really, really hard, though. It is much easier if you know their birthday.
All right, we're going to take a little trip now. Let's see. We're going to go to Oxnard, California this time. Grade 6s with Miss Barha. Let me bring her in here. There we go. How are we doing today, Miss Barha? Oh, if you can hear me, can you unmute for me, Miss Barha?
There we go. Can you hear me?
We gotcha. Oh, we had her, but I think she accidentally disconnected her devices. Miss Barha, if you can still hear me, see if you can reconnect and we'll get that question from you. There we go. I'm going to bring you back in.
Are we good?
Yeah, we gotcha.
Okay, cool. Malia, do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Yes. Do sharks have different shapes of teeth due to the diet?
So I heard part of that about the diet. Do they have something about their diet?
Do they have different shapes of teeth due to their diet?
Oh, okay. Different shapes of teeth, Danielle, due to their diet.
Yes, they do. All sharks have certain shapes of their teeth, and that would reflect what sort of diet they have. So, for example, our sand tiger sharks, which you're seeing on the screen, they have very skinny teeth, and that's to take the meat off of fish. And then the more triangular teeth are animals that usually end up eating mammals. And then the more like scary looking teeth, that's like a curved triangle, that would be what an animal like a tiger shark would use in order to eat a turtle. And then the orientation of their teeth also changes. So like that shark is called a nurse shark, and they use their flat teeth, which are just oriented flat. They actually still are a little pointy in order to crush their food. They like to eat shellfish. But some sharks change their diet as they grow bigger, and their teeth will change with them. So because their teeth fall out all the time, their teeth could grow to be different as they grow bigger, which does happen in the tiger shark, which is not the sharks you're seeing right now. These are sand tiger sharks, totally different animal.
Okay, so we're going to grab another question here. This is Mr. Wong's class is joining us. Looks like they're third graders. And Nicole is wondering, it looks like you get pretty close sometimes to work with the sharks. Is there ever any risk of getting a nip while you're feeding the sharks?
No, I mean, they are hand feeding the nurse sharks, or they're actually pretty close to hand feeding the nurse sharks, which are the ones that crush their food. And then everyone else is just using a pole. So the pole is actually right beside me. I can show you it. So this is the pole. It's got a wire sticking out of it, and then it's got a buoy on the other end. So if it does go in the water, it floats. And we are instructed that when we're feeding the sharks, and if the shark grabs onto the pole and doesn't let go, we have to let go of the pole so that it's just in the water and we're not in the water. But we are not in danger of getting bitten. For these animals, we would not want to hand feed them just because their mouth can technically do damage, which is true for a lot of animals here. We don't want to totally hand feed them because it's just like hand feeding a child. They could technically bite you. We do hand feed our stingrays all the time because they have flat crushing teeth, so they aren't going to hurt us in any sort of damaging long-term way. But these animals do have sharp, pointy teeth, and we don't want to injure ourselves because it's a health and safety hazard if we were to do that.
All right. So maybe we can squeeze in one or two more questions here. Give me a wave if we need to visit your classroom again. We'll try and squeeze in one or two more before we wrap up today. So I'm going to go back to Kitchener. I see lots of waving in Kitchener.
What makes sharks immobile when upside down?
So sharks, they go into this thing called tonic shock when upside down. And that just pretty much means their body doesn't really work when it's upside down. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the semicircular canals in their ears, but I am not positive of what makes that happen. The reason it is so detrimental to the animal is that they can't put themselves right side up to fix it. There are a few sharks that can flip over. I've seen it happen before. Like we have white spotted bamboo sharks, and I call it scratch their back a lot on the sediment. So they flip over all the time, and it's not a big deal. But normally, like a sand tiger shark would not be flipping over on its own. We do at the aquarium end up flipping over some of our sharks, which you'll probably see in like a month or so when we're doing our zebra shark enrichment. And that is just to make sure that it's easier for us to handle them. And because they're a little bit calmer at that point, we can do things like blood draws on them really easily if they're upside down. But in nature in the wild environment, they wouldn't be that good if they were upside down because they wouldn't be able to flip themselves back over. Here at the aquarium, we can easily just flip the shark back over.
All right. So yeah, I mean, we love every single event, but the zebra shark one's definitely fun. You get some nice up close personal action with that one. All right. Woodbury, Connecticut, or sorry, yeah, Woodbury, Minnesota. Do you have another question? I think I see someone.
Do sand tiger sharks like to play?
I'm sorry, I only caught the beginning, which is our sand tiger sharks.
Do sand tiger sharks like to play?
Oh, do they like to play? I'd say no. They are not really a playful type of animal like a dog or a cat. Remember, they are not a pet. They are an ambassador animal showing us in a nice, safe place how to change our daily lifestyles to help the animals in the wild. So you can come and visit the aquarium and change your daily life to greater appreciate these animals because you saw them all up close.
All
so
right.
the sharks, I don't think they'd want to play. Like if we were to throw a ball in here, nothing would happen. It's happened before, actually. Our gift shop is really close to where I am right now. So somebody could take what they just bought and chuck it in here, which has happened before. And the sharks don't care. It's just a hazard because the turtle might eat it.
Okay. Camelsauruses, go ahead with one more. Oh, can you get a little closer? It's kind of coming through quiet. Maybe you're just missing the mic.
We want to know if sharks can really smell blood.
Okay, we got that. Yeah. What do you think?
So the question was, do sharks really smell blood? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, they can technically smell blood at good distances from where they are because their sense of smell is actually extremely good compared to ours. However, it's not just blood that they smell. They pretty much smell a difference in the water chemistry around them. So they can smell things like urine and other chemicals that would be in the water. So they usually go to the smells of a distressed fish, which for them would be like a blood smell. But fish and mammals have different compounds in their blood. So they can actually tell the difference between a mammal's blood and fish's blood. So we have urine in our bodies and they have urea in their bodies. So that's the big difference in the smell, and it's how we process our waste materials to make liquids.
All right. And Miss Barha's class in California, final question.
Jaden, you want to go ahead and unmute?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
We got you, bud.
How many types of sharks do you guys have?
How many types of sharks do we have? We have 13 species of sharks in total. In this habitat I'm looking at right now, we have 3 species of sharks. Most of the other sharks live in our reef sharks habitat. That's the habitat that has the zebra sharks in it. And then we have 1 species in the Raybay habitat called the bonnethead shark. And then 1 species in a touch exhibit, which is currently not a touch exhibit. And those are the white spotted bamboo sharks.
All right. I'm going to squeeze one more in from YouTube. Mr. Hancock's class, just, they're just kind of impressed about sharks being around for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. Why do you think they were so successful?
Well, obviously we can't know because we haven't been around that long, but one of the reasons I believe that they are so successful, and a lot of scientists do, is because they are extremely good hunters and their bodies are already well adapted to survival. So they didn't really have to change that much over evolutionary time to remain a good hunter and to remain a good survivor. And it also helps that they are one of the more top predators in their ecosystem. So if you're a top predator, it is a little bit easier for you to survive because you're putting a lot more investment into your young so that they can survive, because there's so fewer of top predators that are solo hunters than there are of like all the smaller animals out there that'll have lots and lots of babies. These animals also, they have a lot of adaptations that other animals opt into, like the cartilaginous skeleton, that shape of their tail that's forked, so you can see right there. So another animal like a sturgeon is adapted to look like a shark, but actually isn't closely related to a shark. And it is just a very favorable body plan that they happened into at the beginning. So that's probably the easiest reason for them to survive that long.
All right. I want to start out with a huge shout out to our YouTube classes. Lots of groups tuning in today. Thank you for filling the chat with those great questions. A huge shout out to our camera classrooms from Canada and the US. Thank you for being with us today. Katie, thank you for those tunnel views. Absolutely incredible. Danielle, thanks for being topside. And obviously a huge shout out to Dave and the other aquarists for, doing this for us today and giving us a nice view of Dangerous Lagoon in action.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for watching our lovely sharks get their lunch.
All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great day. We can't wait for our next trip to Ripley's. But until then, what's the best spot? What's the Facebook and Instagram handle to check out what's going on at Ripley's?
At Ripley's Aqua CA.
Perfect. At Ripley's Aqua CA. Well, thanks again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we're going to sign off for now. Thanks, everyone.